In today's video, we're going to be looking at color looks in the color Copper. So I have my swatches labeled 1 through 12, but that is not synonymous with hair levels. I know it kind of looks like it could be, which is why I want to clarify. It's just to help us keep track of each swatch because I do clips and pictures and stuff near the end, so it's a lot easier to know which swatch to keep track of throughout the video. It sounds like someone is mowing their lawn, which is kind of odd to me considering it's very wet outside right now, but you know, whatever. Sorry if you can hear that. But these are human hair swatches. The only one that is virgin hair though is the number 4 black swatch. The rest have been chemically colored or bleached at some point in their existence. So one is green. Green tends to be like my go-to color for this. Green and red are across from each other on the color wheel, so copper being on that warmer toned scale, I wanted to see how well it would cover the green. 2 is gray, 3 is a natural red, 4 again is black. So then 4 to 11 is a range that goes to platinum blonde, and then number 12 is like a toned version of number 11. So this stuff is interesting because it's a conditioner that you use in the shower to color your hair. I did do a video on a different color from this brand and I feel like it worked out really well. So I'm gonna do the same thing. So I'm gonna take the color straight from the container and put it on the dry hair. Hypothetically, it should turn out like the 5th wash option on here, the darkest that it can go. And then I will wet the bottom of the swatches and apply the color that way as well, and it should turn out like the first option on the bottle. So like I said, starting here with applying the dye directly to the hair. Please keep in mind everyone's hair is different, which means everyone's hair will take color differently. Also, different screens and monitors, of course, can make things look different. So please just use my video as a reference. So I have water in this little water bottle and I'm gonna only wet a few hairs at a time, apply the color, and continue with that till it's all done. So usually I let my dyes sit for about 3 hours because that way the hair can really absorb any color. Certain colors are harder for the hair to take, so letting them sit for a long time is usually what I like to do. But because this is something that you're supposed to use in the shower technically, I'm gonna do the max recommended time, which is 25 minutes according to the bottle. Once they are rinsed and dried, I'll meet you back here and we'll do some comparisons. So it says on the bottle that it's good for lighter hair and that it won't dye brown hair. So assuming that you would be using that in the shower, that would apply to the ends here. But I don't know about you, the ends definitely do look dyed even on the more brown ones. I do know when it comes to virgin hair, it usually doesn't hold on to color very well, so you could maybe dye your hair once and then the next time you go to wash it, it'll come right out. So maybe it's something like that where you use this and as you shampoo your hair the next time you shower, that it comes out. I'm not really sure. But on my swatches, it did take on all of the swatches except for the black swatch. The number one, I would say, actually turned out the most natural looking on the direct dye. It has like a very natural red, like brownish red quality to it. The ends are more natural as well, but I do see more green kind of pulling through. Usually number two looks a little bit more cool toned, but when we're talking about oranges, it's a little bit harder to be cool toned. It does look different from these. I would say it's a little bit darker and a little less bright and intense, a little more natural looking, maybe not quite like this kind of natural looking, but this is a little bit brighter in comparison to that. The natural red swatch still looks like a natural red, but the copper definitely helped to pull those warm tones out even further. Kind of just gives it like a pop. The number five still looks brown, but it definitely has a very like a warm orangey undertone to it. I just wouldn't necessarily say it looks copper, right? So number six took the color as well, but it's not quite as bright as number seven. It could either be the person's hair that this is, maybe doesn't take color that well, and then being darker doesn't help, or it could just be that the copper and the brown tones were a little bit too similar for it to look all that different. I don't know, but there is a difference. This one's a little difficult because I'll take the direct dye part and I'll pick my favorite swatch, and then I'll look at the diluted section and pick my favorite swatch, but because this one is called copper, I'm kind of struggling. On the preview, it does look the same. It's not quite as dark on top here for the blonde swatches as the fifth wash shows, but like this one with the first wash is similar. I just don't know if I would personally call it a copper, so I would say it depends on your goal and what you like. I'm not gonna pick a favorite this time. Even though this is quite orange looking, I did go through my other orange swatches and a lot of them are a lot brighter. This actually ends up looking a little more muted in comparison to most of my oranges, so they're not completely off with calling it copper. Just if you're expecting something a little more natural, especially if you have like blonde hair, I would say not to expect a super natural outcome. So I picked out my two most similar oranges, and the first one I want to compare it to is Manic Panic in the color Psychedelic Sunset. This is comparable to number 12, 11, 10, and 9. Psychedelic Sunset isn't like quite as bright as some of my oranges, but I feel like when the copper is by itself, it does look kind of bright. So it's a little deceiving. If you were to stand next to someone with bright orange hair though, you would definitely look like a natural at that point. If you are curious, Arctic Fox's Sunset Orange was definitely way too bright and a lot more red in undertone. I picked the Psychedelic Sunset because the undertones were a little bit more similar. It has a slightly more yellowy undertone, which is more similar to the copper. The copper isn't as red. I will say though, on the darker swatches, it does pull a tiny bit red. So especially if your hair likes to take reds really well, that might be something that happens. And even Arctic Fox mixed with Cosmic Sunshine was still too red, unless you did the more Cosmic Sunshine mix that I did, but even that would be a like kind of like this color here. I just thought showing the Manic Panic dye would be easier because it's already kind of a closer and undertone dye. If your hair isn't a platinum blonde, diluting the Psychedelic Sunset might get you something kind of similar to the copper, but always do a strand test. But if you're looking for a more natural undertone, I would definitely just go for the copper if it's between these two. The other comparison I wanted to do was for Overtone in the color Ginger. This is comparable to number 12, number 11, number 10, and number 9. So Overtone is a kind of similar idea where you can use it in the shower to help maintain your color. So on direct dye, the Ginger is definitely much more dark leaning, but as you dilute it, you can see that the Ginger has a lot more yellowy undertones in comparison to our copper. I feel like on the Platinum Blonde swatch, the copper looks a little bit more natural, but on the rest of the swatches, it's kind of a toss-up because on the number 10 swatch, the copper looks very orange, but the Ginger almost looks kind of red, which is funny considering it dilutes to such a yellow color. Now, I obviously haven't used either of these on my hair, so I don't know how they fade, but I do almost wonder if the Ginger would fade to a more yellowy gold color after a while, where I could see the copper staying more orangey. If anyone has experience with either of these fading, feel free to comment down below to help everyone else out. I'm not even fully sure what to say at this point because I'm kind of confused by the Overtone looking so red on top and then so yellow at the bottom, but hopefully the comparison of the two help, considering they're both kind of like color upkeep brands where you would use them in the shower and such. And honestly, they're both really nice. It's just, as usual, depends on what you're looking for. So now I'd like to get into our before and after clips. Those, as well as any like photos you see near the end, will all be done in natural lighting. I hope this video helped. If you have a request, I do have a link below to a Google form you can fill out, but just remember, I only do dyes that do not test on animals. Thank you so much to my patrons, and thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video.